What is AI porn and how is it infiltrating our homes? How is it potentially harming our families, our kids, and more importantly, ourselves, guys? Welcome to the Rebuilt Man podcast. My name is Coach Frank Rich, founder and host here. And today we are sharing a very important conversation. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with a great friend of mine, Larry Hagner, host and founder of The Dad Edge. And we dove deep into some very current and trending topics in the porn addiction and recovery space. Things like AI porn, deepfakes, mental health crisis, and the link and integration between all of these. Guys, this is going to be a conversation you probably haven't heard a lot about. In preparation for this, Larry and I spoke prior to recording, and he asked me what's going on in the world of porn these days. I'd recently been on a show, and I spoke at Larry's event last year as well. So we wanted to dive into some topics that he hadn't really discussed, and the topic of porn, AI porn, deepfakes came up, and we explored it in real time. So this is a very important conversation for the men out there, especially those that are maybe caught up in porn addiction, about where this may lead to. If you don't get a handle on this, this is also an important conversation for the fathers out there, both the fathers of young boys, young men, and also the females out there, because we address the role that AI porn is having in schools and in the youth today, and how some of these deepfakes are being used to harm children, how they're being used to bully kids across schools all across the country. So, guys, this is a very important conversation. And as always, we want to come from this discussion from an angle of shame, guilt-free. We're not judging you if you're struggling with any of these topics. But guys, if you're out there and you are caught up in this struggle and you do need a way out of it, I want to extend an invitation before we get into the conversation to join our Rebuilt Man community. You know, we've created the 7-day reset. We have a program that is designed to help you in the first week gain the momentum, build the mindset, and be surrounded by a community of men to help you win this fight against pornography addiction. You can visit therebuiltman.com/7-day reset to access this for free and join our exclusive brotherhood today. But without further ado, let's get into the discussion with Larry Hagner, how to win the fight in your home against AI porn. We love you guys, and we'll see you on the other side.
We've talked about this topic a lot, about porn, and I've got my brother Frank Rich back on the show today. Frank is the host of the Superhuman Life podcast, and he is also dedicated to helping men break free from the porn addiction and reclaim their integrity, their confidence, and the connection to the people that mean most to them. In this episode, we are talking about something I have never talked about on today's show, and maybe some of you guys have heard about this, and maybe you haven't, but 5 minutes ago, I did not know anything about this AI stuff. And it was a little scary. I even had to ask Frank, like, what in the world is a deep fake? And he's going to go through that today as well. But he helps men reclaim what it means to be a man, what it means to be a father, and what it means to be a husband, and what it means to be a man who is faithful to God as well. He really incorporates that very, very well in his work and his programs. And this isn't just about technology. This is about protecting our minds. This is about protecting our souls, really. It's about protecting our marriages. And most importantly, it's about protecting our kids. And unless we know what is actually out there, we don't know how to defend ourselves. So, Frank, good to have you back. I cannot wait to talk about this. Or should I say, maybe I can. I don't know. I didn't even know this stuff was out there. But AI generated porn now, huh?
Yeah, well, Larry, man, welcome, or I'm sorry, grateful to be back.
To my podcast.
Welcome back to your own podcast here today. I'm so honored to have you on the Dad Edge, and excited to excited as well, man, because I think it is something that is important to discuss and get out there, and I'm curious to see where the conversation leads us, and grateful for the opportunity to talk about these things, because it's a dark and scary world out there, and technology is transforming faster than ever before. So hopefully we can help men that are maybe already going down the path and tunnel, and more importantly, prevent those that aren't yet there by giving them some insight to what is actually happening out there.
Yeah, this is a new one for me. Well, not this topic, obviously, but now that AI, but you're gonna have to, I guess, excuse like my naiveness. Obviously, I'm familiar with like Pornhub. It's been around forever. Everybody knows Pornhub. Everybody knows like the websites you can go to. AI porn, is this something that incorporates into these other sites, or is this like new sites altogether? Is it a totally different platform that people have to pay for? Like, how in the world is like, how is this happening, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's been 6 years since I've been on a Pornhub or any internet streaming site myself, so I'm going to speak from the outside. But based on what I know and understand, there are already genres, and there have been for a while. I mean, there's been anime porn going back years and decades. And I think it's important to maybe go back 20, 30 years and set the frame for the conversation, right? Because both you and I are old enough to remember the rise of the streaming internet and even the dial-up, right? So it's very well documented that porn was a leading driver of the evolution of all of the technologies. You know, going back to dial-up porn, there was a massive push from porn industry. Many of the early or the abundance of content on the internet. And still today, 25% of all searches on the web are porn based, right? So it's always been at the forefront of the evolution of technology, going back to dial-up, then getting to internet streaming, and then also the virtual reality space. So the porn industry was one of the first industries in virtual reality. You know, you put the headset on and you would be lost in these scenes. So to anybody that has studied this or is deep into the technology space, it's probably no surprise to them that porn is a driver of the evolution of AI. It's just, to a certain degree, and we talked, I think, on the last episode and probably a lot of the other episodes you have around this topic, porn is it's so tricky because it hijacks natural human behaviors, right? The need for connection, the need for intimacy. Although all those are false with porn, it makes us feel like we're getting these things that innately we were wired and programmed for. And I think that's why it's been such a driver of these technologies, because now you can sit on the outside. And this is where it leads to, you know, preventing men from stepping out in the real world, creating real relationships, because you get all those without having to expose yourself. You know, John Eldredge, the author of Wild at Heart, says that porn gives everything a man that he wants and needs sexually without requiring anything of him as a man. So it's hijacking all these things. But yeah, I think for years it's been at the forefront of AI. And I'm sure there are sites that are 100% AI curated. But even on your normal Pornhub sites and your other streaming sites, there are now genres that you don't even, because the technology is so good, like you can't even determine or decipher the differences. This is what I was explaining to you, like with the deepfakes, right? So I've come across even through like school. So school is a platform that we use for our community, the Rebuilt Man. It's a large platform with tens of thousands of other schools and communities. I've come across other communities within school that are dedicated to helping men monetize themselves as porn deepfakes. So this would be a man sitting behind a video screen viewing himself, and then the AI curates the video to then make him look like a female. And because the technology is so good, you can't tell the difference if it's a real female or, like I said, a young man sitting behind the screen curating. So it's a very dangerous place for a man to end up.
Holy crap, man. So deep fakes, like this is a term that you just educated me on. How does that work?
How much work have you done in your team with AI? Like it's become a big part of our marketing platform. We have dozens, if not hundreds now, of curated images across social media that have been 100% AI generated.
I would say so with AI, like I'm probably using it. I do use it. I use it every day, but I use it to more have conversations with me, if that makes sense. So so for instance, if I want to think through like an SOP within my business, like,
Yeah.
or if I want to think through a way to structure something, or like, so for instance, even like our skill, like our workbooks and stuff like that, like we'll give it commands of what we want, and it'll give us exercises and workshops and facilitation, that kind of thing. So it does really great there. But as far as like automation, ads, I don't really have AI doing anything that I wouldn't personally do myself. So like that kind of thing. So not much.
Yeah. Think of the best graphic designer that you've ever hired, as maybe a contractor for a project, whether it's creating an ebook or creating images, within your books. AI has the ability, to produce just as good, if not better, in a matter of seconds. You could feed it 6 images of Larry, over the years, and it would be able to reproduce almost to a T, an exact replica of you, looking like a real life human being. I mean, the abilities that it has from a design standpoint, are phenomenal, right? So if I had an image, let's say, of a high profile celebrity, multiple images, right? Because they're all over the internet. I could pull 5, 6, 7 of these images together. I could feed them into a chat GPT, a Gronk prompt, or any of the other softwares that are more design focused, and say, create images of this celebrity without clothes on. And because it can scan bodies, right, and do all these things, now you can have AI generated images of a celebrity or any person. And this is where it's showing up, and it's dangerous for young kids, right? Because there's been multiple reports of kids in high school that yearbooks, social media, boys are using, or other girls are using, in a way to online abuse or get back at, because you know how kids are, right? It's like the female drama side. So if a young girl, hate to use these perfect scenarios, but within a school, there's multiple reports I've seen where photos have been shared across the school of AI, basically like fake nude images of girls within the school. And think of how traumatizing that can be for a young girl, right? Now everybody has images of what she would look like, completely nude, completely naked. But if you know how to speak to AI, you can basically have it do anything you want.
Quick pause here, gents. What Frank just described with schools and the image abuse is exactly why I partner with Bark. Bark monitors your kids' texts, their emails, their YouTube, and 30 plus other social media platforms, and it's going to alert you when something risky like this shows up. Sexting, explicit images, bullying, predators, self-harm, all of it. And with this now going on with AI and everything going on, we're going to want to know this information, whether it's our kids that are being abused, or God forbid, our kids doing the abusing, or if it's even just happening in our school. Bark is going to be able to alert you when things like this happen. I've trusted Bark for the past 6 years. It's on all of my kids' phones. It's a great way to monitor everything that they're doing, and it keeps them safe. I've had more productive conversations with my kids just by leveraging Bark than I have probably any other thing, as it relates to their phones anyway, because I can get in front of problems way before they become really bad problems. So we don't let our kids ride a bike without a helmet. We're certainly not going to let them have a phone without some sort of protection. So make sure you guys have Bark. Head on over to thedadedge.com/Bark. You're going to get 10% off of all their packages for life. They now have the Bark phone, which is an Android, which comes preloaded with all the Bark technology. They also have the Bark watch for the little guys. My 9-year-old has the Bark watch. It's great. The thing can only text, it can only call, and it does take audio, so you can speak into it and it can send an audio message, but no apps, no internet, no nothing, just simple. You know where they're at because it's got a map. You know if there's any alerts and all that good stuff, but they got the Bark watch, the Bark phone. And for all my guys out there that your kids already have devices, you got the Bark app. So like I said, you're going to find everything over thedadedge.com/Bark. Let's keep these kids safe. Keep them safe, keep them protected. All right, back to the show. God bless, man. That's nuts. Like, so I'm just curious, like, I mean, how is it that we is the AI technology moving faster than what we can put standards like and rules and laws around? Is that one of the issues here?
Oh, for sure. And there's, I'm going to speak to the best of my knowledge and understanding, and I'm not the expert on AI and regulations and laws. So if I make a false statement here today, I'm open to somebody that has a deeper understanding correcting me. So let me just start from that place. But from what I understand is the government has already stepped in and said that there's no regulations with the evolution of AI for like the next 10 years. And there was a lot of pushback politically around this because of these exact things, right? If there's no regulations on what these technologies can do or can become, what's the possible worst case scenario? So a lot of things should be regulated, but at the same token, like freedom of America, freedom of speech, right? So this is getting into a topic of discussion that I'm not 100% strongly versed in, but for sure, AI today compared to 6 months ago, like it's night and day. It's evolving faster than we can process and we can understand because it's intelligent. So it's evolving itself at the same time, in addition to all the engineers that are continuing to work on it and all the money that is being made off of it. But I do know, because I saw multiple podcasts that I'm a follower of discussed this about 6 to 8 months ago, that the government stepped in and kind of put a block on certain regulations within the evolution of what these AIs can do or can become.
They put a block in, meaning like they don't want regulations?
They don't want regulations. They don't want regulations.
That seems, I mean, I know I don't want to get too off topic of porn and all that stuff, but I was thinking about this actually this past week, and I really think there needs to be regulations like quickly around AI, because otherwise, like, I don't know. I mean, I think AI is great. Don't get me wrong. I really do. I think it can advance. It's advancing a lot of things, but it also scares me a lot because of the jobs that it'll take.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this just yesterday. I was like, there's got to be some sort of like government regulation agency out there that regulates, like, you know, you can only have 10% of whatever in your business that relies on AI. And then you do have to obviously pay people to do this other stuff, right? So I was just kind of curious about that, because I do know that, you know, how fast AI is coming, jobs are going to be in jeopardy if there's not regulations around it. But getting back to AI and porn and that kind of thing, gosh, man, I feel like I didn't know about even the AI with what kids are doing in high school. Like this could seriously like get completely out of control. Like, as far as like, you know, who's to say, like, you know, maybe you and your wife, you know, are out sometime and be like, oh, hey, I saw you out on a date with another woman. And then they have like this photo of this dude with this other woman. It's not even a real photo. It's like, how do we know what's real and what's not? I mean, it sounds like even the porn industry, like this stuff is becoming so real that even sex is becoming like an AI generated thing. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it takes revenge, specifically on the porn side of things. It takes revenge porn to like the whole next level, right? So, I mean, there was always, or more recently, there was a fear of like, because the younger generation, I mean, all generations, right? It's like viewing or recording your sex acts with your wife or your partner became a thing. But then if you do it too young, or, you know, if you do it and that relationship ends up, like, you can go to streaming sites, and revenge porn is a genre. And what revenge porn is it's literally videos of a former boyfriend or a ex-husband, like, sharing the sex acts that he was having with his partner. And I think what AI can do now is it can take that to the next level, right? I mean, Larry, I'm seeing the shock on your face, man, but like, this is the reality of what has taken place. And this has cost young people their lives. There's been multiple suicides of young females, probably young men as well, because this gets out, completely traumatized. Like, they've got to a point where they it was too much for them to handle. But yeah, I mean, you know, even in our space, and I say our space, but like the podcasting space, right? Like Joe Rogan has been involved in multiple suits because companies have utilized his voice. Like, if I wanted to, because you have enough content on the internet, I could make a voice over ad campaign for, let's say I was launching a new company or maybe an apparel line, for dads. I would have the ability, because you have so much content out there, to make a audio recording of your voice to promote my product. Now that is illegal, right? But if I do it, launch it before you ever find out, like I can begin to monetize. And that's happened with, I know Joe Rogan, Andrew Huberman, I believe Jordan Peterson. So these big name celebrities, companies have illegally taken their voice, taken their likeness, and created ads to promote products that they were not affiliated with to any degree. Now you think of that and then bring it to what happens in the porn space. Yeah. I mean, it is an important conversation and I'm glad we're having it, but it's also at the same time very, very dark about what it could lead to.
Wow. That's crazy, man. So let's talk about this a little bit. You bring up the topic, like I really thought we were obviously going to really go into the direction of AI, which we have, but how can we have, like, you've got me really spun up though about like how kids are using it, right? And like taking like images of people fully clothed that they maybe don't like, or they want to go have some fun, or like, and then they share it. Like, how can, like, this kind of stuff, like, we've been on this podcast for 18 minutes and the majority of what you're talking about, I haven't even heard of yet. I'm like, holy crap. So thanks for bringing this to our attention, but how do we go and have, do you think, fruitful conversations with our kids about this kind of stuff? Because dude, this is not even remotely close to our world growing up.
Yeah. And, just for clarity, if I sound like I'm kind of all over the place on some of these things, it's because literally, like, we were texting about an hour ago around today's conversations and we were just looking for talking points. And I knew that this was, probably something you hadn't talked a whole lot about. But I'm also not the expert. Like, and I've only scratched the surface in my understanding. So if there's a little bit of me trying to pull, to where I sound intelligent, it's because I've literally started thinking about this in real time about an hour ago. Yeah, we've had some conversations, but I didn't come fully prepared, and like I didn't spend days researching these things. You know, I think to answer the question with how do you get in front of it, you know, I would lean back to you, I think, in the expert of parenting and conversations with kids, because I think that's your wheelhouse. But coming from somebody that's in this industry, and just like I would tell any parent around the conversation of pornography, is you can't dance around it. You know, you can't pretend, like it's not real. You can't pretend like they're not going to run into it. You know, I've had Chris McKenna. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chris McKenna, founder of Protect Young Eyes. I had him on the podcast a couple of years ago, and his organization is dedicated to giving tools and resources and real strategies to parents around technology. Obviously, protect young eyes, right? So how do you have these discussions? How do you have these conversations? What are some resources to help facilitate conversations? And he speaks directly to parents, and he'll go into other organizations to kind of facilitate these things. And one of the things that Chris said to me around the discussion with porn in your kids is you have to make pornography the most common word in your home. And what he meant by that is children need to know what it is at an age that you feel appropriate, and the appropriateness of that conversation is, I think, going to be individually based within the family, remembering that age of exposure is somewhere between 8 to 11 years old. So don't have the conversation at 13 or 14 because they've already probably gotten there. But your children need to know what pornography is. They need to know what pornography isn't, and they need to know who do they go to when they see it. Because yeah, they're not ready for these things. Their brains are not at a developmental stage where they can rationally process what they're running into, whether it's porn in the way that you understood it before 30 minutes ago, or porn based upon the conversation that we're having here today. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I agree, you know, and I mean, let that sink in for a second, right? For all you guys out there, that is the statistics out there. 8 to 11 is when they first see it. I'm of the believer that I want to be ahead of that before my kids see or experience anything, right? So like my 11-year-old and I, right? I mean, I've already had this conversation. Well, I've had it 4 times now. I've got a 9-year-old, so I've started the conversation with him. But you know, this is what I've done with my kids, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not saying this is right for everybody, but I go to my kids and I let them know, like, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're probably going to have, like, you're probably going to laugh. I'm going to probably laugh, but we're also going to, like, it's going to feel weird. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about masturbation, and we're going to talk about something you might not have heard of called porn. And I'm very, very blunt with that stuff. And I just tell them, I'm like, look, and every time I've had this conversation, I've been able to have the conversation before they've seen it. So I started really young. But I always tell them this. I'm like, look, you have to have somebody to guide you through this, because trying to navigate this whole thing of sex, porn, masturbation, you know, becoming a man, becoming a young woman, all these different things. Like, if you don't have a guide for that in your life, then you're kind of in trouble, right? Because you feel isolated. Even some of the, like, I remember growing up, like I was probably way too much information, but I didn't have a dad around. I'll never forget, like, the very first time I masturbated and actually had like an orgasm where semen came out, and I was freaked out of my mind. I was like, what the heck just happened? Like, am I going to die? Like, it was kind of funny. Like, but you have no one to talk to about that stuff, you know? And I always tell my kids, you need to have this conversation with me, because learning about it on the internet is not going to be your best source for this information. Learning about it from your friends who are the same age and haven't experienced any of this stuff, not going to be the best source for information either. So you need a good source for information. That source is going to be me, or it's going to be me and your mom, or whoever you feel comfortable with. But the most important thing is that you have somebody that you can talk about this with. And by the way, every time we talk about this, there's no guilt, there's no judgment, there's no shame, and there's no question that's off limits. No matter what you ask, guaranteed, I've either thought about it, I've done it, or I've thought about doing it. So ask away, right? And I think that's the type of conversations we need to have with our kids. Like, I love the fact that you were like, porn needs to just become like a normal word in the house. Like, it should be. You know, it's a topic that they're going to need some guidance on. So why not?
I'm curious, Larry, because you have a 19-year-old, right? Your oldest. I mean, he's basically a young man at this point. I know you have a very close relationship, and I would assume that probably half of his, whether you call it friends or just peers, probably are secretly struggling. What has the conversations been like? Obviously you had those early ones with him, but now that he's become older and has become a young man, I'm sure he's ran into it. Maybe he, even though having the conversation, fell into where the temptation cycle. And maybe he's even had conversations with friends that are struggling. What has that discussion been like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, you know, obviously, the privacy of him, I'll leave some details out, but yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, and I wouldn't even say half. I would say all of his friends, you know, have some sort of issue with it, right? I mean, they're kind of at that age. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Here's where I have really found the most leverage with him, with this conversation. He's really, really strong with his faith, which is great. So that really keeps it, I think, his habits, probably cleaner than most, which is good.
Yeah.
He's very open when he slips up, talks to me about it. We talk through it. But the thing too, that again, right, wrong, or indifferent, I tell him, I'm like, you know, hey, there's one, like, I'll never forget the very first conversation I had with him on this one topic, and it stopped him in his tracks. And I think it really stopped and made him think. I think if you really want to motivate a young man, I don't know about girls, I really don't, but I do know that I think it's like 30 or 40% of online searches actually come from women for porn. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Or do you know that? I've heard that.
I don't know the actual stat, but I know in the younger generation, porn is becoming a much bigger struggle with young girls. And I think it's 100% a byproduct of just the exposure. Like, girls are seeing it at the same age as boys now. And I think there's a curiosity component.
Curiosity, yeah. I agree. But here's what I have found. That if you tell a young man that he might have problems with getting an erection at any point, that usually motivates him to do something different. So I told him, I was like, hey, just so you know, there's porn-induced ED. And he's like, what is that? Yeah. And I was like, it's, you watch too much porn, you get desensitized, and then you have the real thing and you can't get it up. He's like, oh my God, is that a real thing? And I was like, it's a real thing for sure. I was like, there are more men your age who have erectile dysfunction than ever before. I was like, so it's a real thing. I was like, and that's what I told him. I was like, listen, like, I was a young man too. You've got urges, you got curiosity, you go and seek this stuff out, but just know that there's a consequence to this. That when you do have the real thing, your stuff may or may not work. Mm-hmm. And that turned it, I won't go into the detail of all that, but that turned into probably the most motivating conversation for him. And then I would also say, obviously, the faith-based thing as well. But I think for a young man, you know, who's a teenager and like he to save himself that embarrassment of being with a woman, like I have found that is very motivating, you know, to have that conversation with him, that, hey, there's a desensitization that happens when you do this too much. And that's been really motivating for him. Girls, I wouldn't even, to be honest with you, it's same as you. It's like, I only have boys. I've only had the sex talk with boys. For all my guys out there who are raising daughters, like, man, I don't really know, other than the fact that maybe you would know, but I would think like, I think I would maybe really lean into like, you know, do you want men to look at you as an object or a person? You know, and that's when men are looking at porn, that's kind of what we're doing. It's an object. It's not necessarily a person, right? And going back to like, you know, if you want to be loved and cherished and seen and heard and safe, and this is probably not the direction you want to go in.
Yeah. And these are conversations that I have not yet personally had to walk through. You know, I was talking with you offline before we started recording. I have a 6-year-old boy now, that lives in the home with me. It's, you know, stepson, and a 9-year-old, girl. And I've helped hundreds of men and sat on the outside and tried to coach them in house facilitating these conversations. But from a real world personal walkthrough, I know it's coming very soon. And, you know, I think for you, probably what's enabled that conversation to go the way that it did with the oldest is the model that you are within the home, right? Your son respects you. So those conversations come from a place of really respecting and wanting to not disappoint my father, because I aspire to be like him. And I would say from a young woman's perspective, the lens at which she sees the relationship between mom and dad, and also the lens at which she looks at her mother. So I think that there's a very important part that a mom plays in how she presents herself to the world. Is she not objectifying herself? Is she walking in a traditional type of role? And is she a real model of feminine beauty? And I think a lot of these things just matter, because kids will want to model what they see in the home.
I agree. I really agree. And I think the more, you know, this is where I think a lot of guys out there, a lot of couples, I think if you're not prioritizing your marriage, you know, and I would even say before the kids, I'm not saying like, oh, you know, Junior just got a broken arm, but we have a date night. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. But what I am saying is like, prioritize knowing that your kids are watching every move that you make. And if we can keep our marriages on point, you know, the chances of them, I think, of creating a successful marriage or relationship down the road is higher. Plus they feel safer, and I think they feel better, and they're probably gonna have more conversations around topics like this with you. But going back to this whole, I want to go back to this whole AI thing. I'm just curious. Where do you think, like, if we were to fast forward the tape 5 years from now, where's the porn industry going to be? Like, what are they doing next?
I think there's two different answers I can give to this question. Where do I think they want to go versus where do I think it's going to be? I'm going to give the second one first, because that's more the future that I hope for. And it's from the lens of, optimism. So as we were talking about your oldest there, 19, a part of this Gen Z population. I saw a stat last week that 60% of Gen Z boys surveyed push for bigger restrictions to porn access. So it's the young boys that are actually wanting it harder to get their hands on it. And I think it's hard for people to maybe understand why, but I've spoken to enough young men and young boys and have spent time in these conversations long enough to know that a lot of these boys feel lost and hopeless. And because they were exposed to it at such a young age and nobody prepared them, they don't see a way out of it. So some of that hope is from a place of desperation, I think. Like they almost feel victimized, that because it was so easy to get, that's why they're lost in their 20s. So part of me is like, because there's going to be a push and we see a wave of conservatism in that younger generation as well, that society is going to force the regulations that aren't yet there. And there's organizations out there, Trafficking Hub being one of them, led by Lila Mikawait, which has done an incredible job. I'm not sure if you've had her on the show. But just in the last 4 or 5 years, what her organization has done, you see different states with regulations, Arizona being one, Texas has put age restrictions. Now you kind of have to verify age. You're seeing things happening in the UK there as well. So I think society is going to swing the pendulum in the other way. And I think a great case study to look at is tobacco, smoking, cigarettes. I think in the 80s, somewhere between 60 to 70% of all US adults were regular, everyday smokers. I mean, you and I grew up in a generation where smoking was something that was done in public restaurants. You know, my dad was a smoker. When we went out to eat, we sat in the smoking section. Smoking was something you could do on airplanes. You know, now I think that number is somewhere between like 4 to 5%. So in like a span of 40 years, it went from like 50 to 60% of all adults to like less than like 6-7%. So this massive wave, because the education came out, right? It's like you go back less than 100 years and it's like they were marketing cigarettes for pregnant women, right? You know, doctor recommends this cigarette because there's obviously money behind these things. Tobacco companies, big tobacco was pushing things. So they would push it, they'd market it. But then we go 30, 40 years down the road, we start to see all the implications. We start to see all the dangers and the byproducts of doing that. I think porn has been the same thing. It's been this misunderstood drug for a long time because it's so new, right? Internet pornography is, 2 decades old. AI porn is obviously less than a decade old. And the people in charge in the older generation thinks porn, thinks a Playboy magazine. And now the young generation is waking up. Hey, this thing has got control over me. It's hijacked my mind. It's hijacked my soul. It's hijacked my heart. I don't feel like I'm a man. And they feel a victim. And to a certain degree, they're right in that way. So the younger generation, and I think just understanding and research is going to almost force the regulations that are going to keep. Porn's never going to be gone, right? Porn has been a part of human civilization since the beginning of time. You can see cave drawings of sex acts, right? So I think it will always be there. And whether that's a free speech, freedom conversation is a different topic of discussion. But I think what's going to happen is society is going to push it. People are waking up, and obviously the fact that you've had as many conversations on your podcast is a big reason for that as well. So the optimist in me, going 5 years into the future, thinks that some of the things are going to be regulated. There will always be the dark web. There will always be things that are happening, just like with any industry. But I think it's going to eventually reach a breaking point where it slows down.
I hope so too. I mean, if you really, and I love the fact that you compared it to tobacco, because when I was telling my kids that not too long ago, I don't even think they believed me. I was like, "Yeah, there used to be a smoking section on a plane," and they're like, "Why?" it's like a giant tube, doesn't it go everywhere? I'm like, yeah, it did. I still remember like the ashtrays being in the seats and all that. But yeah, hopefully there will be more regulations around that. Just out of curiosity, I would love for you, Frank. I mean, I know you've got a brotherhood, you've got a community of guys that do life with you. Can you share with us? I would love for you to just share some stories with us, like some stories of success, like men who have come to, sit at your table, like, hey, I just can't shake this thing. And most importantly, what I really love for you to do is share with us the implication, like the consequences that a man was dealing with, like whether it be or whether it be he had disconnected marriage, or maybe he got caught by his wife or something like that, but then was able to turn things around.
Yeah, we have a lot of them. We have an entire playlist on our YouTube. Direct people to check out Coach Frank Rich on YouTube. But the one I always go to first when I'm asked this question is David. David was a local, worked for the sheriff's office here in Tampa Bay. Attends the same church as me, and through our time working together, it was about 2 years ago that Dave was a part of the community and program. But during the time, I got to get in touch personally with him, because he was 15 minutes down the road from where I was living at the time. And David was married to his high school sweetheart. He was in his 40s, early 40s when he came to the program. So they had been together for about 25 years. Beautiful family, had a senior in high school girl that was a rising star athletically, locally, and had a boy that I believe was in middle school, 8th grade, going into high school. And the wake up call for David was he got home from work one day and there were apartment lease papers on the bar counter. And, obviously through the last decade, there had been multiple conversations. You need to quit this. I'm going to try all these things. It reached a breaking point with his high school sweetheart that was now his wife. And she basically said, David, if you don't get this under control, me and the kids are moving into one of these apartments. And that was the real breaking point for him that he needed to finally reach out. And I'm sure you hear this in the community. Guys will listen to the podcast for you. They'll watch your videos, and then something happens that shakes them, that feels like a rock bottom. And that becomes the point where they finally decide to change. And why I do so much content, why we put so much out there, why I try to speak as often as I possibly can, whether on our platforms or others, is I want to help guys before they get to that point. Because not every story is like David's. Not every story is that of a saved marriage, but through our work together, David refound his relationship with God. He got back into the church. He lost about 20 pounds, plus through the 16 weeks working with us. We take a big, focus on fitness, on gut health, on, diet, nutrition, training. Daily walks are a big part of our curriculum as well. So he refound his identity in himself. And what was cool, man, is the relationship with his kid. So you can go to our YouTube. We have the video of David. It was a beautiful shot, kind of documentary style, like high production, like 4K, like very well professionally done. But I got to spend time with the family, and I got to see pictures of the family. I got to have conversations with his kids. And I remember the oldest was going into her senior year, and you could just see the excitement that she had to finally have her dad back. She had 1 year left before she went away to school, and she pulled me aside and she's like, I just want to thank you because I get to spend this last year with my dad. And it was just incredible. And his wife spoke on the video that we shot there as well. And to hear the connection that they had, this leans into the work that you do on relationships. They took their daily walks together. They were dating. She told me it feels like we're back in high school together again. So here's a man that was completely disconnected from life, from himself, a shell of himself, showing up to work, but then getting home and basically just sitting on the couch, scrolling, disconnected from his kids, disconnected from a wife, found himself, found his fitness, found his faith in God, but more importantly, restored the connection to his wife and his kids, and restored a family that could potentially have been broken.
God bless, man. Can you imagine like coming home to apartment lease papers on the kitchen table? Like, it's terrifying. Like what, like you just feel like your life blew up. I know this is on YouTube. You have that clip handy? Like, I mean, you don't have to share it now, but I want to put it in the show notes for
Yeah. No, I will. Yeah, I'll shoot it to you.
Please do. Guys, I'm going to have a link for that YouTube video in the show notes for you. If you guys go to thedadedge.com/1388, I mean, obviously everything we're talking about today, obviously to link up with Frank and everything we're talking about today. But I want to put that in there because I want to make sure that the audience can view that and see that. I think when we talk about these things, Frank, like, just things like people in general or results and that kind of thing. It's one thing to talk about the results or what this person went through. It's another thing to see their life, right? To see that documentary, to see like that person. Because I think when we see that person, quite frankly, we see ourselves in some way, shape, or form, right? And we're just like, oh, there's a little bit of David in me too, right? Like I'm that guy. And like, could I have the same turnaround? Could I prevent bad things from even happening, right? So we're going to have that link in the show notes for you guys. Thank you for sharing that. I knew your program was I knew it was robust, but I didn't know that you guys also focus on things like gut health and that kind of thing, and fitness, and I knew you'd focus on faith because I knew it's a faith-based program. But one of the coolest things that I think that came out of that story with David is, yes, he lost 20 pounds, right? He probably wasn't in fight or flight thinking he's got to hide something for a long period of time, but also like when we think about this for a second, the time commitment that we spend in porn, hiding it, like think about it, the effort that we have to really make to hide it, to then go do it, to go view it. I mean, granted, I know guys spend minutes, but some guys spend hours, and that kind of thing. But think about that. Those minutes or hours are stealing that walk away from you and your wife, right? It's stealing that connection, that intimacy away from the people around you that really, really want that attention, right? And I know, and I used to be in this camp too, man. I'd be like, I'm not hurting anybody like by doing this, right? I'm actually like, I actually justified it by like, I don't want to burden my wife with my sex needs. Like I want to give the poor girl a break. So I'll just go do my own thing. When I could have like, hey, you want to go for a walk? Catch up on our day? That's what I think is the most sinister thing about like this industry, this space, is that it steals our time and we don't even realize it until it's too late. Like people are like, it's not hurting anybody. It might not like right now, but it does over time. And especially if they find out, it really hurts. But that's a killer story, man.
Yeah. And I don't think it's even just the time that we are consuming, but it's who we are after the fact, because we live in secrecy, guilt, and shame. Now we're hiding other things. And maybe we're not scrolling porn sites, but maybe because we feel like a shell of ourselves, we're scrolling social media. We had another gentleman, Derek. We don't have a testimonial documentary with Derek, but Derek was a father of two young boys. I think they were like 7 and 5, and they lived on a lake. And Derek was in the marketing and media space, and he took a walk with his boys every night after dinner around the lake. But through our program, we challenged all of our guys to audit the relationship they had with their phone and social media. So Derek started to take that walk with his boys and leave the phone at home. Because what he had quickly realized is, although he was out there, like his boys were enjoying time with each other, but he was disconnected because he was scrolling social media, looking at websites. Like he had his phone had a stronghold on him. And he thanked me at the end of it. He said, Frank, I'm so thankful for you. I wish I would have realized this earlier. I've already lost years of my boy's life because I was connected to this thing more than I was connected to them. A simple act of challenging a man to say, hey, leave your phone at home when you take your young boys out on a walk after dinner, changed his life. And I think it's just a testament of what can happen when you really begin to evaluate these little behaviors, because he felt he was there. Yeah, I'm out there with my boys, but he realized he wasn't engaging with them. He wasn't playing with them. He wasn't having conversations. He was a dad that was there, but wasn't really there.
Yeah, man. I think we can all relate to that one big time. It's like these phones have like demons in them. I fall into that trap too. I'll just as we wrap up here, I want to share just a quick experience that I had this past weekend. sitting in a haircut place because me and my kids went and got haircuts. There was this guy who had two kids, two boys sitting next to me. His boys were probably 4 and 7, and the 7-year-old had a phone, and he had a phone. And I don't know, man. Like, it was just, phones are a part of our everyday life. Everybody has them. Everybody has them in their hand, and everybody's looking at them, right? But when you start to see the effects of how it affects other people, especially people that don't have a phone or, just don't have them on them, like this 4-year-old kid, his dad was on his phone texting somebody or doing something. His brother was on his phone, and this kid kept going, like, would get like this close to his dad's face. That dad, and he's like, hang on, I'm doing something. And then he went to his brother, and he's like, Brad. And he's like, get away, man, just get away. I'm doing something. And I watched this kid after he kind of got rejected by his dad and his brother. And this kid and his dad and brother didn't notice it. And the kid looked so freaking defeated, man.
Yeah. Like,
he was just like, they have phones, I don't. And they're more important than me. Like, that's I think the message this kid was getting. And you know what? Here's the horrible thing. I sat there, and that was like a mirror to my face. If I'm being like super honest with myself, I'm sitting there thinking like, I can't judge this guy. Like, how many freaking 1,000 times have I done that? Like, probably made my kid feel so insignificant. Like, don't bother me. I'm on this thing that has my attention. And I'm like, God bless, man. There's a reason it's called presence, right? Because your presence is a gift to somebody. It's all right. Don't take that gift away. I love the fact that you shared that, man. Just even, it's not even in the porn space, but it's like just being more disciplined with our digital discipline.
Yeah. It's crazy you share that because it was 3 weeks ago. We had Baker, at the barber. He was getting his haircut. We take him on Sundays, usually after church. And there was almost the exact same scenario, except both young boys had iPads. So dad's scrolling phone, and then the boys were probably maybe 7 and 5, just here, right? Just, an inch away from the screen, just playing a video game for half an hour. And I'm very intentional. And it's one thing I love about Jess as well is, because she knows the work, and we've had a lot of conversations, and we try to leave phones in the car if we go in somewhere, if we're with the kids. They'll, hey mom, can I play with your phone? Frank, can I play with it? Like no, like, we're gonna be here. We'll have a conversation with you. We'll play a game, whatever. But I saw almost exactly the same scenario, except both boys were locked into iPads instead of just being there and just being present with dad.
Yeah, man, but it's a strong, we can't judge those people because we all do that crap ourselves, right? From time to time. Like, there are times we're disciplined with it, and where there's times we're not. But what would it look like to be, more disciplined? So, dude, this was really eye opening, to say the least. I had no idea these things were even out here, out in the world now. But it's really good that you brought this to the attention of the dads out there, so we can have more fruitful conversations, especially with this AI stuff that's going on, and especially like, for all you guys out there with daughters, and even sons too, like, man, be on the lookout for stuff like this. Someone capturing your kid's photo and having a good old time with it, spreading around the school. We got to have better eyes than that. So thanks for coming on today, Rich. This was awesome. I want to give you a moment here to share how can the men connect with you and what you have going on that you can help them with.
Absolutely, brother. And I'm, grateful, for you as well. And hopefully, like I said, it helped somebody out there and maybe brought some new insight, because I'm sure a lot of the audience is maybe in the same boat that you were. So if we can educate and raise awareness, hopefully that was the aim or end of this conversation. And I appreciate you joining me again on the Dad Edge podcast as well there. So no, man. Coach Frank Rich, we're all across the social medias, Instagram, YouTube. We have the Rebuilt Man, podcast, which is our 3 times per week. We have the Superman Life podcast as well. You can find that, on any of the platforms. And for you guys out there that is maybe struggling, in this area, maybe not specifically with AI or some of the things that we discussed here today, but if you're caught up in a struggle with pornography and you've been struggling to find a way out of it, we've created a free 7-day challenge. So it's called the 7-day reset. They can access this for free, and it gives them daily actionable steps, short little assignments to help build some momentum in creating freedom in their lives. and it gives them a community of men to do this with as well. So if they go to the rebuiltman.com/7-day reset, they get access to the 7-day challenge and a free week inside of our brotherhood community, which is growing and thriving, and all the success stories, men all across the world that are unlocking freedom, weekly live coaching with myself and the team as well. They get all that for free at the rebuiltman.com/7-day reset.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed and got something away from that conversation. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, turn those post notifications on. And as I shared in the intro, and as we ended there right at the end of the conversation, we've created a program. We have a proven blueprint and framework to help any man that is caught up in the struggles with pornography addiction break free, reclaim his identity, rebuild his life, and restore intimacy in his relationships, guys. And the best part about this is you can join this 7-day reset 100% for free. What you'll get is you'll get daily actionable steps. But more importantly, you'll be surrounded with a group of like-minded men, high-performing, high-achieving men that are winning this battle every single day. If you visit the rebuiltman.com/7-day reset, you can access this program and exclusive community for free today. But guys, share this one. This conversation needs to get out there. People need to know what's happening in their homes. They need to know what their children are being exposed to and the dangers of this if we don't address these things in real time. But we love you guys. We appreciate you for the support, for the ratings, for the reviews, but most importantly, for sharing these conversations and discussion with as many people as you possibly can. Guys, we'll see you in the next one. But until then, stay free and stay rebuilt. We love you guys. See you next time.